Hello, I'm Jim Schaefer, host and executive producer of Rip Rap, the academic book television program. Our program this time is quite different because we're featuring events and people who are at the Ann Arbor Book Festival for 2005. Instead of interviewing one author and one book, we've interviewed different participants who were at the festival, including Washtenaw Literacy and Tom Zimmerman from Washtenaw Community College and other people. So sit back and enjoy. This is an unusual adventure even for us.
Let's hear for Lauren, please. 25.9.
Maybe not the electric bass, but just like this. All right, well, they're not before radio, though, Andy. Anyway, so you had to amuse yourself. So
Hi, I'm Randall Byer. I'm at the Eastern Michigan University Library here at the Rip Rap, the academic book television program booth at the Ann Arbor Book Festival, the second annual Ann Arbor Book Festival. I'm talking with Kevin Smokler, who's just written a new book, Bookmark Now. Kevin, welcome. I'm glad you
Thanks,
made it.
Thank you for having me.
I wish you would tell us something about your book, and we've been talking before we're on air here about Kevin's book, and we're going to have a discussion about writing, webcasting, the use of electronics in writing today, and we'll go from there.
Absolutely, yeah. Randy. Bookmark Now, Writing in Unreaderly Times, is a collection of essays by writers in their 20s and 30s, celebrating and asserting the continued relevance of reading, writing, and literature in the 21st century. I have fun with the word unreaderly because technically we've always lived in unreaderly times. We in fact thought when the novel came out 250 years ago, we thought that would be the end of intelligent reading as we knew it. But in fact, the challenges we face now as readers are more diverse, more digital, more pixelated.
Yes, okay.
Our challenges are that there's a billion other things to distract ourselves with as readers, and yet reading and writing and literature is more relevant than it has ever been, and that's the argument of the book.
Wonderful. So you've got a series of essays by various writers, 20s and 30s, or young writers, I guess you'd say.
Well, these were all folks who grew up. I like to say they were the second generation raised by television. They were the video game generation.
Yeah,
they were children when video games began, and they were in college when the internet came around.
Right.
So they have had more multimedia distractions than any generation of writers in history. And yet they have still found themselves drawn to the production of literature. Why? And what does that say about the impression we have as a society in our head of writing and the production of literature?
They live in a world where the printed word and the electronic word are really merged together.
Absolutely, yeah.
Distinction between the two.
And it means something very different to be a writer now because of that than it did 25 years ago.
I'm curious about one thing in terms of literature today. There seems to be a great merging of serial literature in the form of zines and comics. There seems to be no fear of jumping off the page to a sidebar or ancillary descriptions, as opposed to sort of one linear text.
One of our writers became a novelist after becoming a famous online diarist, which is not a term we hear too much anymore. But online diaries were in many ways the predecessors to blogs.
Very true. You're right. And in the printed, the serial form in weekly papers or monthlies.
Absolutely. Pamela Ribben was an online diarist who had a diary at Pammy.com and still does, PAMIE.com.
Okay.
And her diary got so well read and so well loved that she would get presents from readers on her birthday. She would get 200-300 Christmas cards from the people who read her diary, who she had never met before. And they started arranging conventions of fans of her diary, which still go on. And from this, she got a Los Angeles agent interested in her writing. And the agent, her first book was published 2 years ago. Her second book's coming out this. She developed a career as a professional writer from experimenting with this form online.
Scars told stories, well then that would explain this horrific love romance, tattooed, twisted, thick fenced around my heart, marked in tallies. Every time I think, listen, believe me, I'm paying for it now. I've never been one for writing love poems, but I am good at being late, so consider this here the opposite. The nights of talk with me, well, to wish I could have added my 2 cents earlier. Kept me in the breeze, so the breed stuffed deep in the bottom of my pockets with jingles to remind me the next time I stumble blindfolded away from something so beautiful. Tell me, is an old street corner frozen, holding instrument in hand, begging for your ears to just listen? I know you can't hear that, but maybe you can just try.
I'm here with Laura Persian Rayner, a storyteller at the Children's Pavilion at the Book Festival. Laura is a librarian at the Ann Arbor District Library. And Laura, what I want to ask you is, what does a lumberjack have to do with literacy?
Well, it's a very direct connection, because these little lumberjacks were made down south in the mountains when families gathered on front porches at night, long before television. They gathered to tell stories, and as they told stories, they whittled and they sang songs, and then they had these lovely lumberjacks to dance along to the songs. So the songs and the stories and the family all went together.
That would mean there are 31,536,000 seconds in a year.
Whoa! How many numbers are there?
More than we can count.
There are numbers everywhere. 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 Numbers, they're everywhere. There it is.
Stop crawling across this ceiling, dripping down over my throat, closing their cold, bony fingers around this already asthmatic windpipe. I don't know how much longer I'll have to tell you this, so please, just try and listen. It's been 1 week since the final bookend avalanched from your tongue. Your words burned forced, fire quick, still singed to the bongos in my ears, as if a break was something I took between shifts, as if space was the reason for parent chaperones at middle school dances. I'm sorry I saw it coming like a yellow light collision, did not flinch until it happened. I'm sorry I was never ready to listen. I'm sorry for being that fish you never had the right bait to lure. You could have caught me.
Let's hear it, folks. Three votes go in the slam. Next up, Paco.
23 with the mind and acne of a creature that she has the most like the tell us more severe than that. The first time I met her, she was bawling. She was in despair over lost Power Rangers.
I'm now with Chris Roberts, the Executive Director of Washington Eye Literacy. Washington Eye is the local county that surrounds Ann Arbor. And Chris, welcome to our podcast today.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. I'm glad to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about, well, I understand you're on the board for the book festival, so maybe you could tell us something about the how the book festival got started and the place that maybe Washington Eye Literacy as an organization has to the book festival and that?
Well, the actual beginnings of the book festival started with a group of people that just really thought Ann Arbor was the right place. And though I wasn't part of that, I got brought in once the implementation started.
I see.
And that was because a big piece of the mission was to actually promote literacy too, and make this more than just a book festival and a celebration, and actually a community advocacy for literacy, which is fantastic for us. What our organization does is it helps adults with reading, writing, and English as a second language.
I see.
We're a volunteer-driven organization, and all of our work is done through volunteers. And we had 600 volunteers helping 900 learners last year. And an event like this makes it very easy to help find new volunteers. So that's our best part of being here.
That's the hook you're looking for, right. I'm interested also in finding out the link between Washtenaw literacy and libraries and booksellers or bookstores. Obviously, you have a lot of book people and those volunteers, readers, clearly. What's the link between libraries and your organization?
Oh, geez, there's just a whole lot of interconnected links. Our office is provided to us as an in-kind donation from the Ypsilanti District Library, which is a perfect spot because the library has so many readers, but also the folks that we service are not readers and they're new emerging readers. And coming into the library and having support of their tutors there is a really nice fit. As far as the booksellers, Nicola's on our board from Nicola's Books in Ann Arbor. And it's just such a win. And her patrons are wonderful tutors, and our tutors quickly become patrons once they go into her store for our orientations.
Right.
So there's just a lot of overlap between people promoting literacy and books and trying to keep books alive, too. We don't want to have the art of books not stay alive in this day and age.
Play with the genie thing that turns them into a little kid. That's Playland. It was about half hour from where I lived, and before we had driver's licenses, we would take the bus out there with the ostensible purpose of trying to meet girls, which happened like never. But if it did happen, the question would be, well, what would happen next? What would you do next? And the answer would be you take the bus back by yourself just to meet that person. So this is kind of an apocryphal story about that. It's not really about a first kiss, but it's a kiss early in the kissing career called Playland. The bus ride's the freakiest. You sneak slip to the stop 2 miles from your crib, duck into the corner store, blow 49 cents on chewing gum, and seriously, when the heck did you start thinking about your skank breath? You swing solo onto the bus, pop a torn up squat, and all of a sudden, you're one of those slow-mo folks. No longer a cog in the great goofball wheel, laughing too loud, spitting foul as if curse words collect taxes from your tongue. Not just. Now you become one who trusts the rides about the destination.
Hi, and I'm Randy Esplin, and I live here in Ann Arbor, and we're at the book festival, and this is my work here. I'm a medieval manuscript illuminator and science fiction and fantasy illustrator. My career has been for many years doing science fiction and fantasy art, and over the years I've developed my abilities and knowledge in doing authentic style medieval manuscript pages. The page you're looking at right now is where that's all come from. It's a page that I'm making for a private client. It's the life of Joan of Arc, and it's done in 15th century French style. Now we're looking also at another page that I started many years ago and never finished. This small one up at the top here is it's less than 3 inches high, and that uses all medieval manuscript authentic pigments. I either made them, collected them, or bought special ones. Many of these colors are made from common things like buckthorn plants or iris flowers. Many of them are rocks like malachite or azurite. They're ground up as minerals into a powder and mixed with binders to make the paint. The binder is like the glue, the adhesive that holds the color onto the page. So I've learned how they did all of this in the Middle Ages. The layout, the design, I've made my own tools. Some of them are down here on the table.
I'm going to pan the camera here so we can take a look.
Yeah, we can see here. This is a brush made out of the hair from a weasel and into a feather barrel. This burnisher here for smoothing out the gold is an agate set in bone with an oak handle. This reed here actually came from Venice. I didn't grow it, but I cut it. The ink here I made out of oak galls that I found here in the Ann Arbor area.
Oh, no kidding.
These colors over here on the left are from iris flowers. As we move down here, verdigris, ultramarine, this is malachite, this is red lead, which is called minium. The red here, the darker one, is vermilion, which is mercury sulfide. These two yellows, the front one here is orpiment, which is a mineral. Then that's arsenic trisulfide. Then we have saffron lake. Saffron stamens are used to stain chalk to give the picture or give the pigment body. This is a lake made on Brazil wood dye. Brazil is an imported color, but used very much in the Middle Ages. As was dragon's blood over here.
I imagine these were pretty pricey in their day as well.
Oh, they were. Yes.
Especially saffron, I imagine.
Well, saffron was expensive then too, and they had rules about what was the best stuff to use.
Right.
But other colors could be like cornflower blue, where they'd go out into the field. Was it 7 weeks after Whitsun, and collect the cornflowers. Yeah, had to get them before midday because they had to be good and juicy. And then you mix them with some sal ammoniac and.
That's sensational. You've really done a lot of research on this. I've got about 2 minutes left.
Yeah.
I want to ask you. We were talking before the interview. Tell me about literacy in the Middle Ages. Was everybody illiterate in the Middle Ages?
Well, you know, the definition of literacy depends on who you are and what you're talking about. Mostly it meant, did you know and understand letters as in Latin? So if you were a member of the church, then you probably did read and write Latin and then were considered literate. There were people like kings and high nobles who were not literate in their own native tongue, but there were many people who were.
Now, Monica, what about you? What have you been reading lately?
Fiction books.
Any favorite stories?
Yes. It's a guy, the author's name is Brian Jocks. He writes fiction books about mice, animals.
Yeah, these are the Red Wars. What are they called?
Red Walls.
Red Walls. Jakes or Jocks?
Jocks.
Jocks. I think he was in Ann Arbor recently.
Yeah, I believe so.
Did you get the chance to meet him?
No.
Yeah. Well, actually, I got one more question for you, Monica. Do you think there's a link between books and music?
Yeah.
Do you ever hear sounds? Or tell me what you think the link might be. Do you ever hear music, or can you ever imagine music when you're reading?
Yeah.
That's pretty neat.
Hi, I'm Joan Jandrinoa. I'm with the Great Lakes Booksellers Association. We represent independent bookstores in Michigan, Indiana, Illinois, and Ohio.
Thanks, Jan. Who's Jan?
Joan.
Joan, pardon me. Okay. And?
I'm Rita Williams. I'm from Ohio. I've been a bookseller for many years, and I do projects for Great Lakes Booksellers Association.
So, at any rate, I was on the street across from the Literacy Pavilion, and I saw the Booksellers Association label, and I thought, I wonder what the link is between booksellers, small independent booksellers, and literacy and libraries. And since I work in a library, it just occurred to me I thought I might start out a conversation with that kind of question. Do you think there's apart from the obvious link between reading and literacy, where do you think the place of the independent bookstore is today?
I can speak from the association angle.
Okay, I'll get a little closer.
We make our annual meeting open to librarians as well, and each year more and more librarians attend our annual trade show, and there they get to meet the authors, and they take part in any fundraising we have for literacy in our four-state region. So it's growing more and more every year.
So there's a really intimate connection between the two.
Absolutely.
The dissemination of knowledge, or book to library to writer.
We all share the love of the book.
Right. The sort of nexus between
I think the goal is the
publishing
same. for everybody in the business. The goal is to promote literature and the love of it. And I think libraries and booksellers work very well together to further that goal.
Now, how do you think the boom of electronic online writing and online text has affected not only the marketing of books, but also just reading in general? Are you seeing an effect?
I think that's kind of hard that's so new. I think it's kind of hard to say what's going to happen there. I know people that have been published online in journals and not in print.
Yes.
And I think it's too new to say what is going to happen with it. It's very interesting.
Right.
Hi, this is Karen Schaefer for Rip Rap. We're at the Ann Arbor Book Festival in Ann Arbor. And where I'm here with Richard Gillum from the National Writers Union. I'm going to explain what he's doing here. And is this the first year you've been here?
First year, right. First year I have. I think the union was here last year, but first year I've come to help out with the booth. Well, it's an organization for writers. It serves as an informational resource. It helps writers with grievances, sometimes against publishers, and occasionally we even bring court cases establishing rights for writers. For example, in intellectual properties on things were written before the internet and before electronic publishing became important. And one of the major cases establishing that publishers did not have retroactive rights, electronic rights that were not granted to them in the original contract.
There's a lot of writers in Ann Arbor that...
Ann Arbor has an enormous density of writers. Being a writer is nothing unusual in Ann Arbor. There are quite a few writers here. This is almost like a writer's colony. There's so many here. So hard to walk down the street and not run into a writer in Ann Arbor. There's an awful lot of people here.
Shadows on Remington. Shadows on Remington on a cool spring evening, far from the computational gizmo. While Gloria Graham and Yvonne DiCarlo are caressing the lobes and whispering sweet nothings in my ears, banging on the keys for another sold-out page of blackmail, lust, and greed. Taking me far from the everyday on a road with no cops, no pit stops, signposts, or speed limits. Staring back at me, ebony monster, dark as the scenes on the page. Waits for the next staccato burst, a rat-a-tat-tat, sounding like an old 30 cal. Ribbon feeding me an endless belt. Yeah, it's late night at the keyboards. Feeling like the ghost of Hammett and Carruck were blowing some kind of apparitional smoke up the nostrils on a night train to the brain.
Right now I'm zoning in on Mr. Tom Zimmerman.
Hey, all right.
Hi, Tom.
How you doing?
Nice to meet you. Nice to see you again.
Good to see you again, Randy. Yeah.
I understand that you're a teacher of English and literature at Washtenaw Community College.
That's right.
The
I'm
local
also director
college.
of the Writing Center.
Director of the Writing Center.
Yes.
Actually, I'd like to ask you a few questions, if I could, about the the impact of libraries and your writing program and the link between writing and libraries. That you're either your own experience or at the college where you teach.
Yeah. Well, we try to have a really close relationship with the library. Being in the English department, we feel that we're really kindred spirits and natural allies, with the library, and so we try to do a lot of projects together. We try to exchange ideas on book lists, reading lists for students. I know a lot of our English teachers use the library services a lot. We count on the library to do a lot of bibliographic instruction for our students, things like MLA documentation, APA documentation. How do you evaluate an internet source, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So websites. So we get have a lot of partnership with that. So I think it's a really good thing. Certainly the Ann Arbor and Ipsy Reads programs, the library promotes that, the English department promotes that, so it's a very good thing, I think, yeah.
What do you find as, in your experience, with new writers that are coming into your program, or just freshmen at community college? What is it that that you need to work with them on about writing?
I think they need to read more. I think that's the most important thing. Honestly, I tell that to every young writer I meet, whether I'm teaching a Composition 1 class or a creative writing class or Shakespeare, whatever it is I'm teaching.
Mm-hmm.
I think young writers need to read more. And I think if you want to be a writer, you need to be a reader first. And you know, the more you read, you're going to absorb all sorts of influences, all kinds of things that will make your own writing better. You know, not to say you're copying from these other writers, these these books that you read, but it just gets your mind filled with ideas. It's just very nurturing, I think.
Ways of framing the story.
Absolutely. So
Right.
just things you never would have thought of.
Right.
Just like looking at paintings. If all you'd ever looked at were 18th century paintings, you'd have no idea what Picasso looked like.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
so I
true.
think reading is like that too. So read all kinds of stuff.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I think that's going to make you a better writer if that's what you want to do. Yeah.
Do you prefer, how do I put this? I'm just kind of interested in, with the influence of electronic writing.
Right.
Hypertext, the web, blogs.
Yeah,
kind of-
e-zines, the whole thing.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah.
right,
There's
right.
opportunity for sort of short, blurb-like text.
Absolutely.
Paragraphs to full-blown stories.
Right.
What-
Yeah.
How do you encourage a full gamut of
Right. I mean,
experience?
I think that's a really good question. I mean, the literary scene has exploded, and I think we have to wonder, and maybe it's a good thing that we wonder, what is a piece of literature and what is a text anymore? And with hypertext, as you say, and blogs and all kinds of other things, and just the explosion of electronic publication in general, I think it opens up everything, and it's changed language as well. Certainly, I mean, internet speak and abbreviations, you know, the "see you later" thing and all that kind of thing,
Yeah,
and
right.
LOL, and you know, all that kind of
Emoticons
stuff. Yeah,
and-
all that kind of stuff. You know, I think it's really
New
positive.
language, actually.
Yeah, people freak out about that sometimes, and it seems to me it's very positive. If something's not changing, it's probably dead. Something I really like in the new issue of the Huron River Review, which I'm editor of, it's our,
do a pitch.
yeah, here's my
Absolutely
pitch. Okay,
right.
this is
Tom,
WCC's literary magazine. We've won several national awards for it, and something I really like about this issue, in addition to the fact that the artwork's gorgeous, we have some gorgeous.
the Huron River Review.
The Huron River Review. I've noticed something in this issue with some of our submissions. It seems we have some young surrealists or young beatnik-style writers, which I like very much, and that really appeals to me. And I think it's kind of a cool thing that I like nature poems and all that kind of thing, but I like to see experimental writing too.
Let's go in the slam. Next up, Paco.
23 with the mind and acne of a that she has the tell us more severely.
I'm speaking today with the poet Logic from here from Michigan State University, but originally from Maryland. And we're going to talk a little bit about literacy and poetry and street poetry. So how did you feel reading or speaking up there? What was going on? Tell us something about your poetry.
Poetry is kind of like it's my free therapy. It lets me get out things that normally I can't get out, or it gives me a productive way to get out. Anger, sadness, jealousy, any type of frustrations. It's me and the mic and the audience, and sometimes it's just me and the mic, and sometimes it's just me. And when I get up there, depending on my mood, it depends what I'm going to read. And sometimes I'm feeling happy and I read something happy. And sometimes I feel sad, so I read something despondent. And sometimes I feel sad, so I read something happy. So it depends on my mood. I really feel like it just helps me out, helps me get out my feelings.
Kind of interactive, so
Yeah.
you can sort of get out of yourself and let the... Now, I was watching you before you performed. You obviously have a book, a text, and you're working from writing.
I hope you enjoyed this unusual experience of people we interviewed and things that we saw at the Ann Arbor Book Festival for 2005. This is an unusual format for us and probably the only time that we use this kind of format. So check out our website at riprap.org, riprap.org, and you'll be able to keep up with the interview schedule and past interviews that we've done. Thank you for watching.